Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here. Less than 24 hours to go. And we finally reach the 2023 NBA Finals, of course, coming out of the East. One of the biggest underdogs in league history heading into, well, pretty much any NBA Finals series. Of course, we are talking about the Miami Heat, 2 play-in games. Then one against the number 1 seed Bucks, defeated the New York Knicks, and then defeated the number 2 Boston Celtics en route to the NBA Finals. Their second NBA Finals in 4 years, their second under Jimmy Butler, 3 conference finals appearances as well, and they have a lot riding for them. On the other side of it though, the championship favourite, Denver Nuggets, the best team in the Western Conference since December 20th, 2022, maintained that top spot, pretty much breezed through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs there. Lost 1 game in overtime to Minnesota, and then lost 2 games to Phoenix off the back of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker having some really high octane offensive games. Both of these sides now set to face one another. Nikola Jokic, Jimmy Butler, both looking for their first championship. Jokic looking to cement himself right amongst the greatest players of all time, and Jimmy Butler looking to cap off what would be the hardest playoff run to a championship of all time. So a lot riding for both of these sides. So let's get into it. We'll start with the Miami Heat. And of course, as you can see there, your Eastern Conference champion Miami Heat. The general roster they have run with for a majority of the playoffs here. These are the leaders in playoff games played, all double-digit game players. You've got Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, Cody Zeller, Kevin Love, and Haywood Highsmith. They have been the key rotations for them. Of course, leading the way, Jimmy Butler, 28.5 points, 7 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 2.1 steals, and 0.6 blocks. Key on that, though, only 2.1 turnovers. So really efficient with the basketball, particularly when you look at the fact that he's shooting 48.5% from the field, around 36% from deep, and over 80% from the free throw line. Of course, your Larry Bird, Eastern Conference MVP, Jimmy Butler. The 5 key points for Miami, these are real focal points for me, and I think are the real keys to them having any form of success, let alone winning the whole thing. Number 1, really key, they've got to contain Nikola Jokic. He's the best player in the world. He probably should have won a 3rd straight MVP now. Hindsight is always 2020. But there's no doubt about it. Nikola Jokic right now, best player in the league. They are going to have to contain him. And the hard thing about it is that Jokic does all his damage with the ball in hand, but he doesn't necessarily put all the points on the board himself. So when you're containing Jokic, you need to put him in impossible passing situations. You also need to put him in hard-to-score situations. That's a lot easier said than done, but it does mean that the likes of Bam Adebayo, it does mean that the likes of Cody Zeller and Kevin Love are really going to have to work hard in that defensive rotation for the Miami Heat. Of course, point number 2 for the Miami Heat is going to be that of the return of Tyler Hero. Now, it's expected that Tyler Hero will likely be back around that Game 3 mark, as reported by, I believe it was Chris Haynes, Shams Charania, and of course, Adrian Wojnarowski. It's going to be interesting to see if or when he does return. Of course, it's going to be really interesting to see where he goes into the rotation, what kind of impact he's going to have. He's a real key cog in this situation. Hasn't played in the playoffs, has had some injury concerns, obviously with a busted hand, and no one really expected him to even be anywhere near close to being in, considering that, as they said, if Hero's going to be back, it's going to be in the NBA Finals, and at that point, I would like to have seen anyone brave enough to have placed even $1 on Miami to make the NBA Finals, let alone a substantial amount. So Tyler Hero's return is going to be really key there. Do you bring him off the bench? Do you keep Caleb Martin in? And that's going to be the next question there. You need to keep Caleb Martin's production up. This is a guy who's genuinely been their second offensive option here in the postseason. Really stepped up. He's going to get paid. He's showing he can do it at the big moments, and that's really key as well. But the last thing you need to do is hamper his production. This is a guy who lost out on that Eastern Conference Finals MVP 5-4. He nearly won that in the series against Boston. He was clearly their most consistent offensive player in that series and really kept them in it. And a big reason why they were able to succeed in Game 7 as well. His continued production, as I mentioned, going to be key. You do have to factor in Tyler Hero. You do have to try and keep Bam Adebayo active. And, of course, the Eastern Conference Final MVP, Jimmy Butler, you certainly need him leading the way. You can't do it at the sacrifice of a Caleb Martin. He is going to be crucial in this series. 15, 16 points a game is going to be crucial for him, particularly if Tyler Hero is going to come back into the fold. It is going to be that high-octane offense that Miami is going to need. They're going to need to put points on the board if they are going to defeat Denver. On top of that, continued rising play from their bench and their role players. You need Max Strus, you need Gabe Vincent, you need Kyle Lowry, and you need Duncan Robinson in particular to continue to lift and continue to play big minutes and survive in big moments. Duncan Robinson, yep, he's probably missed a couple of key three-pointers there in Game 6 that forced to Game 7, but he's back, not necessarily to who Duncan Robinson was, but clearly a guy who can hit a shot, a guy who can space the floor, and a guy who is accountable for the defense. Kyle Lowry taking charges left, right, and center. He is that veteran point guard. You do need to lean a little bit on that championship experience of him and that veteran experience he has. Of course, Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, these guys are able to score. These guys are able to shoot. Key to spreading the floor. Kevin Love, I should say, another guy who you can lean on for championship experience. He's going to his 5th NBA Finals. You need to tap into that. Cody Zeller playing some good pinch minutes. And Haywood Highsmith chipping in here or there. But again, you can't allow these guys to be zoned out and start going to a 5-6 man rotation. You've got to continue to raise their play, continue to involve them, continue to get them involved, and see where it all comes to, because at the end of the day, Miami are not going to win it by 1 or 2 players. Now, in saying that, for Jimmy Butler, he needs to give it his all or nothing at all. This can't be a series where it's dibble-dabble. It can't be a series where he takes a game off. Now, for Jimmy Butler in the NBA Finals, I don't think that's going to happen. We didn't see that against the Lakers in the bubble. In fact, we saw it to the point of exhaustion in the bubble. But there needs to be some understanding that if Butler is giving nothing and Butler's having an off night, number one, he's going to be playing well defensively. But number two, you need to get that production out of Bam Adebayo, who is going to be key as well. He's going to be key in containing Nikola Jokic there. You need to continue to get production out of Caleb Martin. You need reliable shooting from Strus and Vincent and Robinson as well. And not only that, if he's able to have a bit of a spell when Tyler Hero returns and he's getting his reps up as well, who knows what goes on there. But Jimmy Butler clearly the key to this team, the key to their success. And as I said at the end of the conference finals review there, if Jimmy Butler's going to win the championship and the finals MVP this year, we're talking about the toughest run to a championship ever. And we're also talking about a guy who surpasses your Paul Pierces, who surpasses your James Worthies, and surpasses your Paul Arizons as far as, you know, that upper echelon of guys there. Particularly for the simple fact he's just the pure out-and-out leader of the team. So we'll see how that goes for Miami. That's how I think they're going to have to play their series out. We'll head over to the Western Conference, the Western Conference champion, Denver Nuggets, the number 1 seed in the West since late December, as I mentioned. This has been a shorter rotation in their roster, but their key players throughout have only really been going 7 or 8 deep. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, and Christian Braun, their key rotations there. And of course, let's have a look there. Nikola Jokic, through the first 3 rounds, is averaging a triple-double in the playoffs, and he has them at the NBA Finals. 29.9 points, 13.3 rebounds, 10.3 assists, 1.1 steals, and 0.9 blocks a game. 3.5 turnovers. Is a lot of offense in there as far as points and assists and efficient scoring, so the turnovers really not weighing in much. Of course, the defensive liability is always there, but he's so generational as far as, and not generational as in production, generational as in scale of player on the offensive end, that it doesn't necessarily matter where his turnovers are at the moment. 53.8 from the field, 47.4 from deep, 78.4 from the stripe. One of the best consistent scoring big men in the league, certainly over the last 20 years. Again, a rounded 30, 13, and 10. Nikola Jokic, your Western Conference Final, your Magic Johnson Conference Final MVP. Of course, the 5 key points for Denver, outside of being the best team in this series. Number 1, it needs to be a strong defensive plan against Jimmy Butler. You need to force the role players to step up. You need to force the ball into other players' hands, and that'll be particularly key if you are going to force it into the likes of a Duncan Robinson, and particularly around that Game 3, Game 4 mark, you also need to do it with Tyler Hero coming into the game and not having many reps. That's going to be really key for them, forcing the ball out of his hands. Jimmy's able to score wherever he wants. I think if you limit him to a three-point shot, you have a lot more success. But again, you've got to draw that defensive plan up to force him to shoot the three ball. You can't allow him to get to the mid-range. You can't allow him to get to the cup. If you're going to make him go to the cup, make him go left. Outside of that, it's making him give the ball up and giving it to those role players who need to feel a bit of pressure, giving it to the guys who aren't necessarily feeling their stroke. Number 2, of course, Jamal Murray playing freely. We saw just how much of an impact he's had, particularly in round 2 and round 3, particularly in the conference finals. Jamal Murray needs to be able to just get and go. Of course, we're talking not Shaq and Kobe in the sense of what Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are, but so much attention is drawn to Nikola Jokic that, Jamal Murray needs to be attended to. There needs to be some attention, but he's only going to play well if Nikola Jokic is giving him a lot of the ball when he's not playing well, or if Jokic is hitting that open man all the time because he's really on. So allowing Jamal Murray to play freely for Denver is going to be key. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of off-ball screen action, a lot of ball screen action, and of course, just seeing him work off the body there of Nikola Jokic is going to be hugely key for any success that he's going to have. Of course, when you put all that together, you combine that with defending Jimmy Butler. You combine that with Jamal Murray playing freely and really getting about the game. There also needs to be a consistent level of play from your third options, and these are two guys who I didn't think, and I said it earlier in the season, I didn't think you could have championship third options in Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. However, Michael Porter Jr. has stayed healthy, he's been consistent, and Aaron Gordon has continued to play as a third role, similar to the fourth role that he plays, purely as well off the highly successful run that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic have had. But they're going to need to be consistent on both ends of the floor if there's going to be any success to this team. Of course, you're going to expect that Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. and Contavious Caldwell-Pope as well, and we'll get up to that in the next little point I've got here. But particularly Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon, they are going to need to be competing against Jimmy Butler, against Caleb Martin, against Duncan Robinson, eventually against Tyler Hero, and they're probably going to have to play a couple of small ball options when they're going up against a Kevin Love and a Bam Adebayo. We know they can score, we know they bring some energy. Of course, Michael Porter Jr. has that the ability to stretch the floor with the outside shot. Aaron Gordon can really hammer and attack the rim, but they're going to need to be consistent. There isn't going to be a night where they're allowed to have single-digit games. There isn't going to be a night where a dozen points is going to be a passable mark. We talk about the constant operation of the Miami Heat. They had three 20-point per game scorers this season in Butler, Bam, and Hero. Well, you're going to concede that Nikola Jokic is going to average at least a 25-point triple-double. You're going to concede that Jamal Murray is going for 25 points a night. You're going to need Michael Porter Jr. probably around that 15 to 17 points. And you're going to need Aaron Gordon around 15 to 17 points as well. They're going to need to be consistent, and they're going to have to lock in defensively. The Heat like to slow the game down, so it's not going to be necessarily the fastest finals you've ever seen. And Denver playing at altitude as well. That slow pace isn't going to necessarily suit. There is not going to be a disadvantage, but it's not going to suit them. The idea they can get out and run, really get their lungs pumping, really force the Heat to play above themselves. That's what they're going to need to do. And it's going to be getting up and down the floor through your Aaron Gordons and your Michael Porter Jr.'s that's really going to help that as well. I think they're just going to bring you with pace to the game. They're going to really stretch the floor. They're going to get the wings moving. Again, make it a bit easy for the facilitation of Jokic, spacing things out for Jamal Murray. Fourth point, of course, leaning on their veterans. Contavious Caldwell-Pope played on that Lakers team in 2020, even after people wanted to get him off the squad. Has proven to be a crucial role player. I think he's going to be their number one defensive guy. I think you will see him and Jimmy Butler matched up a lot, and I think you see him rotated to your heroes, to your Caleb Martins when they start really firing as well. You also have to lean on the likes of a Jeff Green, guys who have been around the league, they know what to expect, and to a lesser extent, your DeAndre Jordan as well. You have to embrace the idea, and I think a lot of people are starting to struggle. There's been a big conversation at the moment on Twitter. It's here, it's now, it's new, it's better, it's the best. Throw that out the window. A load of crap right now when it comes to the postseason, and it's proven. Because a mix of veterans, a mix of young guys with some really good, mature talent is what's going to win your basketball games. Really simple stuff. There is some raw talent, ability in the likes of a Minnesota, in the likes of, I don't know, Memphis, in the likes of, I don't know, Oklahoma City. But they don't have a veteran balance. And they don't have mature, solidified stars. So they don't have the same success. This is where you've got to lean on your Caldwell-Popes. This is where you've got to lean on your Jeff Green. You've got to lean on someone, again, like a DeAndre Jordan. They've been around the league for a while. They've seen what works. They've seen what hasn't worked. Utilize it the most, particularly in these scenarios where you need a cool, calm, and composed level head with enough experience to oversee things. And it's the same in the Miami Heat. Let's not get it wrong. Of course, Jimmy Butler's been around forever. You've also got Kyle Lowry, who's got the experience. Kevin Love, all these guys, they've been around for ages. But particularly for the Nuggets, they've got no finals experience. They've got young guys who are seeing their first finals, potentially going to see their first championship. They're going to be angst. There's going to be energy. You've got to lean on your veterans to calm things down, keep things in order, and that's the only way you're going to have any level of success here. You can't discount your veterans purely because they're old, because you don't get to this situation without your veterans. And of course, final point on this one here, and it's really the main one that I've got for Denver, it's not limiting their rotations. They have only played, realistically, consistently 6-7 deep, occasionally 8 deep. But in the NBA Finals, strange things happen. Now, granted, it is one of the best 8-person lineups in the league, but you can't afford to limit yourself to just 8 players in a championship series against a Heat team that has consistently showed, yeah, we might be the underdogs, but we can get this done. The Heat are facing their 5th team of at least 50 wins this postseason. For the Nuggets, they're playing their easiest team of the postseason, I'm pretty sure. I'll get a double check on that one there. But you've got a lot at stake here. This is the NBA title. This isn't the conference title. This isn't best team after the All-Star break. This is the NBA championship. Now, granted, for Denver, they haven't played a 50-win team. So they haven't necessarily had to expend themselves. Again, we look over at 45 wins for Phoenix. We look at 43 wins for the Lakers. And we look at 42 wins for Minnesota. So, yeah, realistically, you've played some worse record teams. But the Heat have also played 2 extra games on top of all their playoff series. They are a tired group. So, yes, keeping fresh legs is going to be key. And, yeah, you might feel you have the freshest of legs. You're 12-3 through the postseason. Sensational work. But you also need to understand that, it's really hard to justify only going 8 deep in a postseason run and trying to win a championship. It's a really tough ask. I mean, you've got to add to the fact that you've got Reggie Jackson on this lineup, who is a capable ball player. If you get Reggie Jackson in and running the system, it's fine. DeAndre Jordan can play. Ish Smith can play. So you've got at least 3 guys there that I'd be really comfortable trying to run through this lineup if you need pinch hitting minutes. And again, on the other side of it, Reggie Jackson, a wee bit of a veteran at 32. DeAndre Jordan, again, veteran at 34. Ish Smith, veteran at 34. They've been around the league. They know what they can do. They're not going to give you big minutes, but they're able to give you capable minutes, even if it's just for a spell. You've got to lead. You've got to get a guy fresh. You can rely on them defensively, or you can rely on them to run a bit of a system there of a second unit. Use them. Keep your guys fresh. Denver's clearly the most conditioned team in this series. Really simple stuff. The reason they play at altitude and dominate the game. But you've got to remember as well, the Heat are going to make this a slugfest. They're going to slow the game down. They're going to play at their pace. So while you might want to get out and run, you might want to blow them out of the water, you've got to have the legs to do it. And going up against a team like the Heat, again, they're not a great team. They are a fighting team. And they've continued to fight for a long time right now. So I think your key point there for Denver, you just can't afford to limit your rotation. You have at least 2 or 3 veterans, and I would call them veterans, who can still give you pinch hitting minutes, who can still provide valuable rest time for your key 7-8 players. There's no doubt about it. I think that would be pretty smart to utilise them. My prediction is the Nuggets in 6, of course. I think the Heat will get a couple of games, but my prediction definitely is the Nuggets in 6. And that's it, guys. That is my preview for the 2023 NBA Finals. I'll try and get a game-by-game analysis video up for each. We'll see how we go. Otherwise, we might get the first 2 games out of the way in Denver and go from there. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoy the NBA Finals. That's been me. I'm out.